PRO of the Education Ministry, is going to be joining us via Zoom. My name is Nuong Falong. You're watching Spotlight on MX24 television. We promise a very relevant conversation. Now, good evening, Mr. Kari. You are on Zoom. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, Falong.
Fantastic. So you are the PRO of the NUGS Electoral Commission. So
yes,
far, I mean, looking at all the happenings of surrounding this event, there have been a lot of questions from students, from the general public. Exactly how did we get to this point where we have multiple claimants of one election?
I think it has to do with one person's grievances, that if someone is not comfortable with probably the process, and from one place to the other or one thing happens to the other, then we are at this end. It's actually not coming from us, it's coming from someone who is not happy with the process, that's all.
So you're saying as far as the Electoral Commission is concerned, the process was fair?
Yeah, free and fair.
I see. Free and fair, who do you recognize as the president?
Dennis Apialabi. I believe from our communique that we released 2 days ago, we stated that Dennis Apialabi is the one who emerged as a winner from the last 56th Annual Delegates Congress.
How was the process of declaring him the winner? Did you declare the results? Were they displayed? Were they released through a specific medium? Exactly how did you declare him the winner?
Okay, so what we do is after balloting, okay, we count the ballot papers, and then I think there and then we announce the provisional results in front of polling agents. So right after that, I think we have 24 hours to then declare the official results. So within 24 hours, we release a communique displaying the results that each candidate got, based on the number of ballots that was cast, the percentage that was spoiled, the percentage that each candidate got. And then that is how, through that format, that is how we announce the one who emerged as a winner.
The questions and accusations following this election, have they been brought to your notice officially?
No, officially we haven't received any notice from anyone.
So as far as you're concerned, there's no problem?
Yeah, as far as our office is concerned, there's no problem. We just keep hearing certain rumors somewhere, but then we haven't been served with any letter officially.
Interesting. Did the EC engage all the stakeholders that were involved in this election?
Are you referring to before or after?
Prior and after the election?
Yes, we have. Like we did. The thing is, we can't start the electoral process without engaging the aspirants. So what we normally do is we first engage the aspirants, we let them know the electoral process, we take them through the process, and then if they have any grievances, if they have any views, they have anything that they want us to have a look at, which some of the aspirants also raise certain concerns. But then at the end of the day, we agree to some of the concerns, and we all agree to disagree at some point before we started the process. So we engage them before and after we engage them to give them provisional results.
Right, and after the event, did you engage them again?
Yes, we did. Anytime before, you see, we cannot release the provisional results without engaging aspirants. So that's what happened on Congress grounds.
And since you had that engagement with them, nobody expressed dissatisfaction with the process?
Officially, no. You see, the way the system works, if you have any problem, okay, you have to officially serve a letter to the Secretariat, that is the office of the EC, explaining to us your grievances and what you think went wrong and what you think we can do about it and all that. But then officially, my office has not received any letter whatsoever from any aspirants.
So when you say officially there's been no communication with you about any of these complaints, but unofficially, during the engagement after the election, did you have any agitations from any of the candidates?
This is one of the normal things that happens during Congress. There were agitations, I think even during the time of balloting, there were agitations from some of the aspirants. But like you said, we were focused on the elections. We didn't want anything to distract us. So we weren't going to pay attention to any agitation somewhere that had not been served directly to us. So we stayed focused to organize the elections as the mandate has been given to us. So that is what we did on grounds.
There have been some complaints, especially from people who observed the election. There was heavy security personnel. Is this normal? They said there were macho men observed. There were guns. Is this normal during the NUGS election?
I don't know the definition for heavy security personnel with regards to the number of security men that we had on grounds that particular day, compared to previous election that has occurred, compared to previous Congress in time past. I think this is one of the Congress that we had just a few policemen around. Okay, I think there were about 10 policemen around during time of Congress. So what if someone says heavy security men, I would want the person to define that based on the context that the person might be saying that.
So beyond the regular security, you are saying here that there were 10. There were no macho men there, unofficial macho men?
What is the definition of macho man? I don't know. If maybe you could enlighten me.
I think where Ghanaian elections are concerned, it's usually heavy-built men who are not part of the official process.
So if we have some, say, some delegates or observers that are heavy built, would we also classify them as macho men?
Right.
We can't classify them as macho men. So officially, what we know is that we had police. See, this is internal affairs, okay?
Right.
So we dealt with the policemen. We had a commander around. We had other police personnel around. When someone said they are heavily armed, NUGS election, I would say the national election is not an election that we can take anything for granted, okay? And then we don't expect the policemen to come around without arms, all right? And even for this one, it wasn't all the policemen that were having arms with them. There are a lot of videos circulating, and then you can see for yourself whatever was happening inside there. So there were security men around, but I won't term them as heavily armed security men. I think that's where this.
So besides the official security men that you had, there was no other interference from anybody else?
To the best of my knowledge, there wasn't any interference from any other.
Were there any grievances on the grounds on the day of the election?
Like I said, there were some grievances from, I think, one aspirant or so.
Right.
The grievances before election were addressed. Okay, that is when we met with the aspirants to take them through the polling process. They expressed some grievances, which we all agreed, and then that is what actually enabled us to go on with the process. Because if those grievances weren't addressed, we wouldn't have been able to start the process in the first place. So we've been able to start the process means those grievances were addressed. In the course of that, like I said, we were so focused on the election that we weren't even paying much attention. The only time we would have been able to pay attention to any aspirant's grievance is that if we had been served officially, that is the only time that we would have been able to probably do something about it. But officially, nobody stepped us with anything.
Mr. Karikari, there have been some comments by the General Secretary of the Union, Julius Anthony specifically, and he has claimed that the election was marred by malpractices. According to him also, he says based on some infractions that characterize the process, the outcome cannot be deemed as credible. Has this come to your attention?
Officially, no. But then you see, if something like this coming from someone, Julius, right, the GS.
Yes,
it's quite unfortunate that someone part of an administration that is organizing an election to stand aside, okay, and then to come out with such an accusation is quite unfortunate. But to my office, like I said, officially we haven't had anything like that. But then I would want him to explain or give details as to what he means by election malpractice or whatever he said that was. Because I like specifics. I wouldn't want to talk in a vague format, right? I would want him to give examples of things that happened that made him term it as such, so that we can speak to that.
Right. I totally get you, Mr. Karikari. Let me just check if Julius has joined us yet on Zoom. Julius, are you on Zoom? Okay, I think we dropped the line there with Julius, but we're going to try to get him back so he can make his stance very clear and explain it. But we also have Kwesi Etiahine right here in the studio. Kwesi Etiahine Sechere. He's one of the candidates that contested the election. Hello.
Hi.
Good evening. Welcome to Spotlight.
Good evening, and thank you so much for the opportunity to be with you.
Right. We're speaking with quite a few gentlemen this evening, but they are all central to this election that occurred. We just spoke with Williams Karika, who is PRO of the NUGS Electoral Commission. First, Mr. Secretary, do you have any grievances where this election is concerned?
Well, thank you very much. I think it's important we put the issues in very good perspective.
Okay.
Not all the viewers understand how the NUGS space the matters works. So, oftentimes, every year there's supposed to be an annual congress. Usually the congress is around 3 days. So, first day, it's arrival. Second day is an opening ceremony. We take advantage as part of student leaders to discuss policies, initiatives by government, and how it affects our future. And often the last day we would conduct elections for the next set of leaders to take over. This time it happened in Kumasi, Ejeso. It happened in the NUGS village, Ejeso Benkrom. The election was slated for April 2nd. Now, this is the real issue. There cannot be any conversation about elections without a composition of Electoral Commission. Let me read some portions of our Constitution quite clearly. Chapter 6, page 42. This is what it says. The Electoral Commission shall be an independent electoral commission financed by NUGS. This is what it means.
Okay.
That the person who will chair the commission should come from the Electoral Commission of the Republic of Ghana. Ask the EC on the line whether he works with the EC of the Republic of Ghana. That's one. Number two, the Electoral Commission shall stand dissolved at the end of the Congress. That's not applicable in this case. But the Electoral Commission shall provide the voter register of Congress, which shall be enlisted by the Secretary of Union Development while filling in the names of delegates in accordance with this Constitution, signed by the National President of the Union and the General Secretary. The register shall include names, index number, portfolio, academic levels of delegates, and their respective portfolio they hold in the various institutions as permitted by the Constitution.
Right.
You cannot have a conversation about elections without election register. You cannot have a conversation.
Was there no election register?
There was no register.
So on what register was the election conducted?
It was just some list of names, some list of institutions that were being compiled together, and allegedly, I'm told that according to the General Secretary, the list was written by an aspirant.
Right, but there was a meeting with you prior to this election.
Yes.
You knew about this.
Yes.
You agreed to the election.
As a matter of fact, the day before the elections, I raised it. Even at the very morning before the elections, I raised it. When I raised it, they said they do not have a register.
This is what you were told.
Hold on. They said they don't have a register. The register is not available. And those were the reasons why a number of institutions pulled out of the elections. Because you cannot have elections where some people, even some media vanguards and Metro TV, showed up to come and vote. Okay. And it's on record. He said it
on record also is the fact that you also pulled out at some point.
Yes, it's on record that I pulled out. Yes, it's on record that I pulled out. And you see, the reality is that we have an EC that confidently can come publicly to put themselves out that there was an election conducted when there was no register. So if they say that I had this number or this person had those numbers, who showed up to vote? What are the names that showed up to vote? What are their index numbers? Which institution are they from? If you cannot provide the register, and if he has a register, he should give you a copy. If he has a register signed by the president, countersigned by the general secretary, give the organizers of this program a copy so they display it to our viewers, so people can see the register that we use to conduct the elections.
Mr. Secretary, have you?
My name is Kwesi Etuahine officially.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Kwesi Etuahine, Secretary.
Yes.
That's what I have here. Apologies. Kwesi Etuahine, have you officially written to the EC about your grievances? Because
no.
When we spoke to him, he says there's been no official complaint, so they cannot act on.
No, I do not need to officially write to the EC.
Right.
Because the Constitution states what the EC should do, and that's the beginning of the conversation. As long as the EC decides not to stick to what the Constitution says, it lies on the shoulders of the institutions and the students of our nation to shape the conversation because the chairman of the EC should be an employee. So, for instance, where the election was held, the Ejiswa Benkro, the Electoral Commission of the Republic of Ghana may have a district officer. That district officer should have been the chairman of the EC. And look at the composition of the EC constitutionally. It says that the commission shall comprise of a commissioner who shall be the leader of the team of the Electoral Commission from the National Electoral Commission. The secretary shall be a student representative, 5 other members of the students, and 3 national EC officers. Ask Mr. Kakarika which institution he belongs to, what's his index number, what's his level.
Right.
There is so much fraudulence in our system. There is so much, you see, there are real issues to be discussed.
Right.
We have national training colleges undergoing double track. We have serious questions to ask with our free SHS and its future. There are very serious questions to ask about the availability of our basic education in our villages. And therefore, there will be no space for some crop of students who decides that they would marshal and come up with their own things against the will of our students.
Mr. Chuayin, beyond the expectation of shaping this conversation,
yes,
what options are open to you? How do you intend to go about this? Are you going to head to court?
No. I mean, basically, I'm the president-elect. The number of institutions that pulled out of the elections, reached the resolution. And let me put this quite clear. An acclamation is one of the ways of deciding on anything in our democratic space. In Parliament,
right.
They have made decisions by a yeah and a no.
Right.
And therefore, if institutional heads and blockheads decide that they will pull out of the elections and decide on me as the next NUGS president-elect.
Who are these? But I'm going to come back to
Absolutely.
that shortly. But we seem to be having a conversation without Dennis, who's on Zoom. So let me just pull him in quickly. I'll come back to you with more questions. But Dennis is on the line. Dennis Apialabi is on the line. We just heard from Williams Karikari, who is PRO of the NUGS Electoral Commission, and he said they recognize Dennis Apialabi as president. We have in studio Kwesi Echiahene, who also recognizes himself as president. Let me go to Dennis, who is the other contender. Hello, good evening, Dennis. Thank you for joining us on the line. Hello, Dennis, can you hear me? Please unmute yourself if you can hear me. I think, yeah.
Good evening.
Yes, good evening. Thank you.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you clearly now. Mr. Echiahene has raised some serious concerns from his side where even the register is concerned. How then do you also hold yourself as president of the same organization that he holds himself as president of, with such questions looming over credibility?
Once again, good evening.
Good evening.
To you. I'm grateful you are having me this evening. I think from the onset of the elections, or from the beginning, this was the goal of Kwesi Echiahene. His goal was to have us one day say that he is NUGS president and I am NUGS president. Because you see, if an election goes on.
No, let me understand this. You think he wanted 2 presidents at the end of the day?
I think he wanted to, at the end of the day, whether he loses or wins, to cast some of these issues into play.
Interesting.
So that at least he gets some media play and some interviews like you are giving him.
I'm giving both of you interviews that we're giving all of you.
No, unfortunately, if I have been declared loser, like I was last year, you won't hear me call myself NUGS president. Okay. Last year I contested in the face of all the issues. I did not call my constitutional body to say that blocks have called him to become a NUGS president. The constitution is very clear how we elect our new.
Okay, Dennis, we're having some issues with your line there, but we definitely will have you speak clearly. So we're just going to try a reconnection again. But you will speak in a moment. Let me come back. I want to bring in David Hughes and Yao Opoku. But let me quickly go to...
There are a few things I'm going to respond to. I'm sure may be useful.
Give me a moment.
Okay, sure.
There were a few comments you made that I want Williams to respond to. So, Mr. Kari, although Mr. Echiain has not brought any official complaint to you, he's complained in the media. He's asked a lot of questions. He's laid heavy questions on the register itself, even your own office. How do you respond to this?
Well, I think first of all, I will have to correct my name. The name is Williams Kakari. It's spelled Kakari, but it's being pronounced Kakari. And then back to what Tiahino was saying, it's quite unfortunate. Some of the things that he said is non-starter. I think is baseless in the first place, because he is now saying that he is the NUGS president-elect. Now, we would like to ask him, based on what grounds? He went on other media platforms to lie, saying that TTAG and some other institutions appointed him, which was explained to him that even they can't, they have no authority to elect him as a president. In the first place, TTAG has come out with a communique, the zoning or that kind of statement in the first place. Now, back to the register that he was talking about. You see, like I said earlier on, we met all the aspirants before the electoral process began. He was there. The only concern that he raised was the fact that he wanted 2 polling agents to be present at the polling center at the time of elections, which was agreed. It's the first time. Most of the time, we let 1 polling agent stay there, and then when the person is tired, then they change over. But this time around, because of that concern that he raised, it was accepted. Now, if that issue was not resolved, how then was he able to declare himself as a president? Even before we ended ballot. There are some of the issues I think that he just wants media publicity. He just wants people to hear him, like what Dennis was saying. So sometimes we wouldn't want to address some of these issues to give him that publicity that he wants. We feel that it is unfair to students who trip from their places from far away to Congress grounds to vote. And at the end of the day, you have certain few individuals with their selfish interests going around tarnishing the image of an administration, which they want to serve. So with that voter register, I think no one, even as of now, I think no one has the right or the moral right to even come out to say that there wasn't any voter register for us to vote with. Whereby we all sat down.
He says during the meeting you did agree there's no voters register. Did you admit to him there was no register?
There was a list.
Right.
There was a list of institutions that we were going to vote with. We weren't just going to just concord names from somewhere and then call certain institutions to come and vote. His polling agent is having a list. That list that we are talking about, he is aware of that list. His polling agents are having copies of those lists. It's quite unfortunate that as a youth coming up, then we have opportunity on such a platform and we lie. It's quite unfortunate. And then he was saying something about the free SHS. You see, I don't know why those things, he keeps coming in with these free SHS and these things. What do we care about as far as these elections are concerned? This is no election that we are talking about. What has free SHS got to do with this? It has nothing to do with this. So he's saying that we had a list. His general secretary, who I can see now, is aware. He signed a list that we used. And you see, let me end by saying this. If we didn't have any list to vote with, and if he feels that he didn't agree to that option, why then did he came to vote? Like, he was there to vote.
Right,
he voted.
Right.
So based on what? So you see, I think he had a plan, but then his plan failed because he wasn't able to execute it well. Because you come in to vote, and later on you go outside to preach that there's no voter register. I mean, who does that? Let's be fair to Ghanaian students. Let's be fair to the students who trip from their various institutions to come and vote. And let's give them some level of respect.
Right.
Election, one of the finest elections has been organized. And I think we don't have to be going this back and forth with an aspirant who is having his own selfish interest with someone else who wants to push this kind of thing. It will work against this administration now.
Right. Mr. Kakari, thank you for that submission. But I have Dennis back on the line. Let me just go to him. It's very important that he gets to submit his side. Dennis, hello. Welcome back.
Hello, thank you very much. I think that, like I was saying, one, let's put this on record, is that to defend the electoral process is not my job. My job is to execute the mandate that has been bestowed upon me by the students of this country as their president. But to chip in this, first of all, when the election started, Kwesi agreed to the variables of the election. He and his cohort voted. They queued and voted. Around 5 p.m., the variables had not changed. It was this serious. And now they complain about the variables and say they pulled out of the election. After pulling out of the election, then they declare themselves winners of the election. How do you become winner if you pulled out of the election? That's one. Two, let me school Kwesi again today too. Kwesi claims that blocks made him NUGS president. The constitution says that blocks only intervene the affairs of NUGS when the constitution or the time limit of the current administration has been overrun. In that situation, they do not declare one aspirant a winner. What they do is that they choose one among the block heads to, in the interim, be the leader for us to get another election done. So first of all, Kwesi is a working illegality and unconstitutional in human form, wearing clothes and suits, because he is parading himself as NUGS president when you do not have the personal right to declare yourself as NUGS president. Today, in the event that blocks even initiate a process that would make one of the block heads president for the time being, they do that with documents, not with hearsay. Now let us assess his statement. Which block has come out with an official document to say that they agree to make Kwesi NUGS president? In fact, the blocks have rather come out. 3 blocks have come out to distance itself from Kwesi saying there are 6 blocks. If 3 comes out to distance itself, and 3 also are in the process of coming out to distance themselves, who then is Kwesi if not a working illegality? I am saying this, that the constitution of the union is clear. If you have a problem with the election, it says that submit a petition to the electoral commissioner. I'm wrapping that up. Submit a petition to the judicial committee. If the judicial committee brings a fine, it's final. If you're not okay with it, you can proceed to an external court. Kwesi has failed to do that. I am not saying Kwesi doesn't have the right to complain about a process which he believes is not right. In 2012, Nana Akufo-Addo had a problem with the election. He went straight to court to seek redress. In 2020, His Excellency John Dramani Mahama had a problem with the election. He went straight to court to seek redress. None of them said that I am calling one region, I'm calling another region. Please, 2 regions, declare me president, and that I become president of Ghana. None of them went went under a tree to say, I am NUGS president or I am Ghana's president. I am putting this across through your video to all media houses. Please and please and please, there is a strict rule with who can be declared president of the union. And any media house that goes in contrary to it might invoke the wrath of the law, because we're like living and walking around that is a walking on constitutionality.
Thank you. Thank you, Dennis.
Against the laws of the union, and that must be said clearly.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Pierre Labi, for your submission there. But, Mr. Tiahini, here's the question I want to ask you. How do you declare yourself president, emerging from a process that you question its legality?
Thank you very much. But it's important to put this across before I address the question. It is true that Dennis lost last year. But it is also true that when he lost, he was promised that they are going to use the same fraudulent system for him to be a beneficiary. So he kept quiet, and this time he benefited. Promised by the same people who are helping him. But let me put this across. How then does he call himself president-elect with no register?
How do you call yourself president-elect with
Absolutely.
no register?
And let me tell you why. I can call myself president-elect because even in parliament, decisions can be made by yeah and a no. Okay. Budgets have been passed by... The yeah was made by the student leaders, the institutions.
But who mandated them to declare?
The power to lead the union comes from them. Comes from the SRC president, the general secretary of these institutions. University of Ghana, UNE, UMAT. These institutions I've mentioned. The 46 colleges of education. The over 62 nursing training colleges. It is out of them that the power to lead comes from. We have people parading themselves. And this is a government-manufactured news. Let me put it across. parading themselves to be leaders that I've won by this number. How did you come by those numbers? When there's no name attached to it, there's no index number. The Constitution states clearly that the register shall include names, index numbers, portfolio, and academic level of delegates, respective portfolio they hold in their institution, signed by their dean of students. A list of names being put together by aspirants. It's not a register.
Right.
And look, right from the beginning, the election was orchestrated because the government of the day do not want student leaders that will speak the truth. They want people like Dennis and people like Williams who cannot even tell us which institution he is in, what his index number, so that they can sweep the real issues.
Do you have evidence of government orchestrating this?
I've told, look, I've mentioned it to you that the composition of the EC must include, first of all, a commissioner from the Electoral Commission of Ghana. Ask him if he works with the Electoral Commission of Ghana.
Right.
The composition must say that the secretary shall be a student representative. Ask him his institution and what is his index number. This is there are two gentlemen in any institution. They are fraudsters. This is electoral fraud. Look, let me paint a correct picture to you for our viewers.
Right.
The best picture you can imagine at Congress is that happened at Ayahuasca West Wagon. They were thugs, they were hooligans.
Are you making a comparison between that and this election?
Absolutely. It was a similar thing. The same faces. The same faces that showed up, that were famous people at the Ayahuasca West Wagon incident, were at Congress grounds. The double guy gentleman of national security that showed up, he was there.
Right.
And many of us students and student leaders had to withdraw because if for that, perhaps, we may have heard the bad news. Someone may have lost his life.
Right. Mr. Chiahine, thank you for that explanation there. But we have other people on the line that I need to draw into the conversation. My apologies for keeping you waiting. Anthony Julius, you were present.
Thank you very much.
Anthony Julius is the outgoing NUGS General Secretary. Please, yes, let's hear you.
Thank you very much for joining this conversation. And I want to put certain things in perspective and for the record. My involvement in this conversation is strictly on basis of upholding the NUGS Constitution and what it dictates that we should do. I am not in this conversation to make declarations as to who is president or who is not. And that.
Do you think the election went against the Constitution that you're here to uphold?
Clearly, it went against the Constitution. And the reason why I am saying this is that the power to declare anyone president or any position, according to our Constitution, does not reside in any of the people who made the declaration. The gentleman, who portrays himself as electoral commissioner, who made the declaration, is not an electoral commissioner or does not work with the Electoral Commission of Ghana. The NUGS Constitution is clear on who makes the declaration. It is not him who makes the declaration or conducts the election. Then, secondly, I want to put on record that the Constitution gives me a mandate to provide a register to the Congress. And it is that register that the Electoral Commission shall use to conduct the election. Let the records also reflect that I, Julius Kwabi Anthony, has not provided any register to the people who, claim to be electoral commissioners in this election process.
But did you see the register that was used? Were you aware of that register? Were you in meetings prior to the election where the register was displayed?
Anyone who claims that I have penned my signature to that letter, what do you call it? The register they used to conduct the election should provide the register, which I have appended my signature to. Anyone who makes that claim should provide it. You see, the register that is required to be provided. You said?
Did you vote?
Where is the evidence? They should bring the evidence of me voting in the election. You see, if people are making claims and they can't prove it, I can prove the list they used to run the election. Because when they started and I challenged it, I took pictures of it. So if there's a way I could display that to you, I can do that. There is no register. So you see, for a NUGS election to be properly so-called, there must be a register of members, which has been published. As we speak, they are saying we should go to court. There was a court decision, a NUGS Judicial Committee decision, which charged the Electoral Commission to release the list, at least 48 clear hours to the election, which they flouted. So these are people who from day one, because of the kind of backing they have decided that they are not going to obey any rules and regulations. I am glad that Dennis has made recourse to issues of laws and regulations being obeyed. I want to ask if Dennis has, minded himself to whether or not the processes he has submitted himself to are legal, and whether the declaration that was made by the commissioner which the Constitution defines to make his declaration. So if there is a claim that someone parading himself is illegal, which I do not want to comment whether or not it is, then it is something that applies to him as well. Because the declaration is supposed to be made by a specific person. If our Electoral Commission rule says that the chairperson of our Electoral Commission, Madam Jane Mensah, is the chief returning officer, and it is only her alone who can pronounce someone president, but a group of people who are not in that capacity according to the Constitution go and by the mere fact that they tore papers and tampered, counted and mentioned somebody, and the person can be accepted as president of Ghana and tell other people that they should go to court. If that kind of thing can be countenanced, then I don't know what else cannot be countenanced. So if we leave room for other people to flagrantly disobey the laws, and then we now tell them to go to court, are we not opening the floodgate for anyone else to do anything at all and tell the other to go to court? We can't run a system
but if
like
you
that.
don't go to court, how can all these grievances be addressed? None of these bodies can address them.
So in the event that someone is also claiming that he is NUGS president, and another person also says he's NUGS president because the PR of the EC or whoever has declared him, that person can also go to court, right? The go to court should not be an anthem that only a few people feel that it is only them that can be chanting. I am General Secretary of the Union, and my role in the process, that is the compilation of the voter register, signing it and giving it to the president to countersign and all that, has been undermined throughout. Right. And you see, there is one significant thing that everyone is ignoring, and they want to lambast you because probably their favorite is the one who has been declared or whatever. Let the records reflect that me, Anthony Julius, that I am here, I am not against Mr. Dennis Labi being NUGS president, neither am I against Mr. President or anyone. The power to declare someone president does not reside in me, but the power to provide the register for the election, sign it and hand it over to the EC resides in me, which I have not done. So if I say I have not done that, and someone says that he is NUGS president, when I know very well that the processes involve me carrying out this and that prerogative, and I come out to say I have not carried out that prerogative, and for that matter, I do not know of an election that has elected a person. Right. Where is my crime?
Right. Well noted, Anthony Julius. That's the outgoing NUGS General Secretary, and he is arguing that he was denied the chance to perform his mandated duties. We also have another outgoing NUGS executive here, who's a NUGS welfare officer, David Hughes, and I see you've been disagreeing a lot. Do you stand with Anthony Julius, or is your position different? David, if you can hear me, please unmute yourself.
Okay, no. Thank you very much. I've been following the conversation since its inception, yes. And I think it has been marred by some by gross misrepresentation. And
on whose side has there been gross misrepresentation? Everyone is accusing someone of misrepresenting.
Yes, in the course of my submission, I'm going to point out exactly which falsifications were made and who made them. Yes. So, NUGS is a democratic body and is governed by basic democratic rudimentary practices. And so, on the part of Anthony Julius, if he complains today on this platform that his powers had been undermined, there were steps he could have taken to make sure that, the union or the EC would come back to its right senses and do what is right before even Congress. And he just declared on this platform that he did not vote. But I was in the same line with him as executive officers who went to vote. So, see, I don't know what these people are trying to put across. I don't know why. I think
but he keeps calling for evidence of voting. And do you have any such Apart from seeing him, is there any picture, video evidence?
I'm saying that Julius is being very dishonest here on this platform today. If he claims that he did not vote at the Congress. Now, I'm not saying that the process that went on was overly sacrosanct, but what we are saying is that the union is governed by basic democratic rudimentary practices. And if you have challenges with something, there are internal structures to be able to resolve all those issues, then to move forward. In fact, it does not even limit us there. You can go to an external court of competent jurisdiction and still have to seek redress and all that. Now, it is overly hypocritical and or out of sheer ignorance on the part of Etuahene to say that TAG and KNUST and a few institutions that pulled out met somewhere and then declared him as acclaimed him as president of NUGS, as the president-elect of NUGS. This is a falsification, it's a misrepresentation, and it has no grounds at all. As far as the union is concerned, what we are saying is that if you have issues, Julius, if you have issues, the issues are not solved by the secession that Etuahene is trying to cause, and it is being forwarded. If Julius will be honest with himself, it is being forwarded by you yourself and a couple of guys. I think that these are the fundamental issues that we should be dealing with, and not.
But David, you failed so far to speak to any of the laws.
Apologies. Can we allow David to land?
Voters register that you are here,
please.
Contemplating.
You failed to speak to the laws, David. You failed to speak to it. Which
gentlemen,
rules, which laws?
Please let him land. You've all had your chance. Please let him land. Okay. Unfortunately, David's line has dropped there. So, but let me bring in Yao Poku, who's the Deputy PR of Education Ministry. Gentlemen, I'll come back to you. But Yao Poku has also been on the line for a while. My apologies, sir, for the delay. But good evening, and thank you for joining us on Spotlight.
Good evening. Thanks for having me.
Yes. So, when you sit down and you observe all of these things as the Education Ministry, what is your intervention?
Let me say good evening to yourself and to my colleagues, my little brothers. From the conversation that I'm listening to, and from all other parties have said or articulated on your show, it gives a clearer understanding
of what is going on.
Yes, where our body politics has it into and where it is going. You ask yourself, what does the future hold? The antagonism and interested parties on stance of where if it is not me, it is no other person. That is not what is used in building a group or a nation. And it's very unfortunate listening to both parties, and it's I'm astonished and I'm even short of words that if this can happen among future leaders, then it tells that we have a long way to go. But in my candid opinion, all what is happening, we can only seek redress at the appropriate forum. And I strongly believe that if any party do have a reservation about the process, whether if a register was signed, whether if it was compiled by the right person,
whether absent,
there was a voting process or not, those, I think, whoever has that challenge, you do have that luxury of time to seek redress. And fundamentally, sociologically, the system is there to ensure that there is a stability. And such conflicts like this, the appropriate forum should be triggered instead of calling names and using strong and abusive words against ourselves. That do not speak well of the youth, and that do not speak well of our system, the Ghanaian culture, which should have a respected young men and women in there. And frankly speaking, I'm really, really, really astonished by
Mr.
the kind of happenings.
This same NUGS has engaged with you on many occasions at different times during different crises. Have they engaged you in any form since these whole accusations started?
No, not to the best of my knowledge. You know what? we are the ministry doing policy formulation and supervising its implementation. We always welcome them, sit around the table and do talk. And just recently with the UTAG umpires, we had a lot of deliberations, of which the General Secretary and other members were present. And we directly do not have a say in the private affairs of the union. But again, we sit back and look at the whole governance structure within the educational system. And I think that we'll have to take a second look at it. And if maybe the need will be, should have a serious interest in them. Because we say learning is a relative permanent change. And what we will be expecting from our future leaders is well-groomed, contributing to national discourse and what have you. But if it should go this length, then I think we must take a second look at it. No more should we call it a private affair among students or whatsoever. Right. Because at the end of the day, it is the education that will shape in their thought. It is the education that will shape in their thinking. But gradually, from the onset of what I'm hearing on today's show, I think all well-meaning Ghanaians, especially at the outfit, should take a second look at the happenings in that union.
Thank you.
But again, it's proper that the name-calling accusations left, right, center can only be resolved when we use the civilized process. And I'll urge all the feuding parties, those who feel aggrieved, should proceed to court, and the other aspect that can be dealt with in the boardroom can be dealt with. But I'll beg of them, let us cease fire on this. Let us sit around the table. Let us see if we can have a solution to it, rather than displaying these act of youthful exuberance within the media space with name calling. It wouldn't help anybody.
Thank you,
it's an advice I'll give to my junior brothers.
Thank you. That's Deputy PR of the Education Ministry, Mr. Yawopoku, calling the feuding parties to dialogue. Will they dialogue? We've run out of time, gentlemen, but I'll just let Mr. Chiahine give me his final submission, and then I'll go to Dennis if he's still on the line, and then we're done. If you can do that in a minute, please.
Yeah, sure. Thank you very much. I would want to put this on record, that we cannot talk about an elections without following the Constitution. Of course, we cannot have a conversation where people will hold themselves as president-elect when there was no basis for a register that produced you.
Right.
The register shall include names, index numbers, portfolios, academic levels of delegates, respective portfolios they hold in their various institutions, as permitted by the Constitution, signed by their Dean of Students.
Right.
Such registers must be submitted to the National Secretariat, compiled by the National General Secretary.
Thank you.
It is on record that was not done. The Electoral Commission, Mr. Kakari, who was on the line, does not work with the National Commission of Ghana, and therefore cannot hold himself to declare anybody president-elect. And I would want to put on record and extend my gratitude to the students of our nation who expressed and reposed their confidence in me.
Thank you.
And the institutions that came together to activate that resolution that made me the president-elect. And as part of it, we would ensure that no government will use our student space as a vanguard and as a washing machine to safeguard the realities of our issues being brought to bear. We, the students of our nation, are committed to a cause where every single issue will be dealt with in perspective.
Thank
that
you, Mr.
we will no
Chiahine.
longer have students who will jump in the pre-singing.
One minute.
Union. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chiahine. Dennis, are you still on the line?
I'm here with you.
Please, in 1 minute, please.
First of all, I want to let you draw your attention to something that I am not in the business of government and opposition. If Kwesi shows that he can call in government scandalized political groups in this, it's not my business. I didn't come to serve political interest, whether it's opposition or government. So he can keep on doing that. Secondly, I think that all parties things have become clear to all parties. That one, the General Secretary of the Union partook, and there are videos overseeing of the election. I'll send you the video. 3, Kwesi and his cohort voted in the election. If you have an election that you have a problem with the register, Why do you even comment? Why do you even allow it to comment and vote? Why do you partake in it? Why do you stand and agree to it to go on? That is one. Two, if the General Secretary and Kwesi mentioned that the students who are part of the commission don't have the right to be part of the commission. The commission is composed of one, a commissioner who shall be the leader of the team of electoral officers from the National Electoral Commission. Agreed. Secretary, who shall be a student representative, and 5 other members who shall be students. Two of them shall be students and 3 shall be national EC officers. So, Kakari on the line has no cause to speak for the commission because the commission is composed of 3 students. One of them shall be the secretary who did the declaration.
Thank you.
To wrap it up,
Dennis.
I think that the laws are clear. This whole banter and seeking media attention by Kwesi and his people is wrong. What does the media do to us in this situation? All you have to do is that subject the process to strict accountability. And lastly, let us put on record that there is no part of our constitution that says that a year and a no by a group of students, whether we identify them or not, can make anybody president. In the worst case scenario,
thank you so much, Dennis.
The solution that comes in this form must come from blockheads for one blockhead and not for an aspirant.
Thank you. Thank you, Dennis Apia Labi. How do we bring agreeable finality to this highly contentious election? We'll be following and bringing you updates right here on MX24 television. My name is Nwong Falong. Thank you at home for sticking with us this 1 hour. On behalf of the entire team here at MX24 television, we're grateful. Good evening.